So the agenda of today's session is to give you an overview on, Mimecast DMARC Analyzer and Brand Exploit Protect. And along with that, we will be giving some use cases. And towards the end, we will have a Q&A session. And along with this, I would like to thank Rajesh and Mani from Citrus Consulting for organizing this and inviting all the guests. So before all, let me give you a brief introduction about Bulwark Technologies. Bulwark is a value-added distributor for information security solutions. So we have been in this region for 22 years, headquartered in Dubai, and currently we have an office in India. We started operations in India in 2017, and recently we opened up an office in Riyadh as well. And we have partnered with 24 plus technology vendors, and we have around 700 plus business partners in Middle East and India. So Bulwark has established an excellent track record in delivering world-class products and excellent customer service. Bulwark partners with best of breed technology vendors. Like you can see, these are some of the technology vendors we have partnered with. And we deliver round the clock value-added services through our partners across Middle East, KSA, and Indian subcontinent. And we work as an extended arm of security vendors whom we represent in the region, promoting and selling the IT security products and solutions through our regional channel partners. We have a dedicated sales and marketing team and a certified technical team as well. So thank you for joining us. Please stay connected. Now I will hand over the mic to Sean.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so thank you everybody for joining the call today. My name is Sean. I am the commercial sales rep or manager for Mimecast in the Middle East. I've been with Mimecast for about 8 years. I'm starting my career with Mimecast in South Africa and then move into Dubai to grow the Dubai and the Middle East and India office. So what we're going to cover today is what Mimecast calls Zone 3. Now, this in Mimecast terminology, Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3 are different areas of risk for any infrastructure, right? Now, this is what we call our solution framework. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but what you can see on the top left is that we have our secure email gateway with targeted threat protection. So most of you are aware that Mimecast is a cybersecurity company. Our bread and butter is our email security. And from here is where we deliver all our antivirus, anti-spam, anti-phishing, spear phishing, impersonation attack, supply chain attack protection, suites. And we also deliver DLP and stationery from this solution as well. When we move to Zone 2, we start looking at what's happening inside your organization. So here, the considerations would be things like awareness training, so educating end users, rolling out micro quizzes, having gamification, having feature-rich content as well, just to obviously create awareness with the users, giving you the ability to track the risk scores, and ultimately making those users the allies to the business rather than the weakest links. The other consideration here is being able to look for latent malware that is being sent internally. So here we do threat hunting, we do remediation, but we scan internal emails for emails that contain malicious links, weaponized attachments, or malicious content. But what we're going to talk about today is the bottom left, which is our Zone 3. Zone 3 is external, right? So where we look at Zone 1, we typically looking at inbound. Where we talk about Zone 2, we typically looking at internal. Zone 3, we're looking at external. Sorry, I might have mentioned internal earlier. My mistake, I meant external. So external, I'm talking about from attacker to customer or supplier or general public. So these are not emails that are being sent to your environment. They're not emails that are being sent from your environment. These are things that are happening externally. So typically, you don't have any visibility on this, right? Unless you are told. So an example would be if an attacker spoofs or impersonates your domain or your brand and then sends an attack to your customer, supplier, or the general public. Now, the only way that you'll typically know about that is if you stumble across it or if somebody tells you about it. But because it's not happening in your environment or it's not attacking your environment, you typically don't have visibility here. Okay, so for this agenda, I'm going to hand off to Natasha first. Natasha will introduce herself and then take you through the brand exploit protect. After that, she'll hand back to me where I will take you through DMARC Analyzer and why DMARC's important.
Yes. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm Natasha and I'm a QBR at Mimecast. I've joined Mimecast recently. It's going to be 2 months and I look over the SNB segment. When we talk in today's session, okay, before jumping to the session, let me take this opportunity to thank each one of you for taking the time out and joining today's webinar. In today's session, I will be covering Mimecast Brand Exploit Protect. As Sean mentioned to you, it comes under our zone 3, that is beyond your email perimeter. So what is Brand Exploit Protect? Brand Exploit Protect is a technology that helps you to remediate brand impersonation attack from the domains that your organization does not own. It helps you to protect your digital footprint. Let's understand the problem and have a closer look at the problem. Okay, phishing is a huge problem. How many times we tell our users, don't click this, don't click that, don't. But still, we have 1 out of 8 people in the world falling for phishing. More than 80% of the reported cyber incidents are tied to phishing attacks. And if you see, most of the phishing website imitates a brand. Why so? This is because brand is valuable and also an easy bait. Even an unsophisticated cyber attacker can register a domain that looks like yours and trick your users to hand over the sensitive information, credentials, ultimately leading to stealing of money. This problem is only increasing. Last year, we have seen 30% increase in the number of fake phishing websites registered. Okay, how does this scam work? Okay, the cyber attackers can use anything between a well-crafted email or social media post leading to a fake phishing website, fake advertisement, and even SMS to trick the users so that they can reach the phishing website and enter their credentials. What do we need now? The need of the hour is we need a early proactive detection. What do I mean by early proactive detection? If you look at the anatomy of phishing attack, the attacker identifies the target, then he creates a fake phishing website, either using clone contents or lookalike domains. Then he delivers the attack, which is a favored delivery mechanism, of course, the email. Pick up any industry report and you can see that 94% of the attack begins with an email or involves an email. And then the target, the victim, clicks on the link and the credentials are stolen. So we find the attack only at the execution stage, only when it is executed. What we need is the shift to happen to the left. With Mimecast Brand Exploit Protect, we detect the attack at the preparation stage rather than the execution stage. Now, what's the impact and whom it is affecting? Your customer. The trusted relationship between your customer and the brand is tarnished. Your supply chain partners, your brand itself. You would have taken years, if not decades, to build the brand image. That has got affected. There is a devastating effect on your brand. Your business, it could lead to financial loss, revenue loss, legal exposure, and your data. Addressing the problem with Mimecast Brand Exploit Protect. How does it work? So Mimecast Brand Exploit Protect comprises of 3 core elements. One is proactive intelligence, threat detection, and remediation. What is proactive intelligence? It's basically brand monitoring. So we scan the website for lookalike domains and subdomains and flag off any malicious or website using artificial intelligence and machine learning. The scanning happens every 2 hours. Even we take the screenshot of the website just to compare it to the original website. At this stage, only the malicious website is flagged off. Coming to the threat detection. Detection agent, JavaScript, is deployed at customer site and it remains embedded within the code of the website. The agent will be dormant as long as it's on the customer site. But once when the content is cloned or scraped and uploaded it's anywhere else, the detection agent goes into action. This triggers for a generation of policies before anything happens. Next is remediation. It includes block and takedown. Let's have a closer look at remediation because it's one of the concern. I mean, it's one of the place where we get more questions and customers are more are concerned about it. So the moment a phishing website is detected, we immediately inform the endpoint protectors. It could be your antivirus, spam filters, and that's when these endpoint security providers flag off the website and block entry of the user to this website. Only blocking is not enough. In parallel, what we do is we start the takedown process as well. First, what we do, as soon as we detect a malicious website, we contact the customer and we inform the customer. Once the customer has given us the approval and we are authorized, we contact the legal hosting providers and give them the forensic evidence of the malicious website. Okay, Mimecast has built mutual APIs with immense number of registrars and registries to automate the process. This allows us the speedy takedowns. Our average takedown time is 3 hours, while the fastest is within minutes. Also, this is how the brand exploit console looks. There is an integration of brand exploit protect with your email security and your web security. So it integrates further to strengthen your defenses. So you can easily and quickly block any malicious domain or URL across your email and web very efficiently. What are the key differentiators? Okay, it's a fully managed service, 24/7 dedicated SOC team at your disposal. It reduces time, cost, and overhead of IT, security, and legal team. Mimecast SOC team follows the process from start to end, ensuring efficacy here, and also the fast response time, which is the average time of 3 hours. I would like to end the presentation by saying that for the first time, we are ahead of the game and the malicious website is being detected and taken down before anybody is a target.
Perfect. Thank you, Natasha. So the way to think about these types of attacks is they are two sides of the same coin, meaning that one can do what the other can't, right? When these attacks are generated, the attacker will use one of two methods. They will either look to impersonate your domain or they'll look to spoof your domain. The difference between an impersonated domain and a spoof domain is a spoof domain is where they use your exact domain. This is where DMARC comes in. If the attacker uses an impersonated domain, that means they've taken a domain and they've changed some of the characters in that domain. It could be a Punycode homoglyph. It could be the high-level domain. It could be a character, a Unicode character in their domain itself. However, the intention is obviously to trick the recipient into thinking that it's a legitimate sender, right? Now, as I mentioned, these are two sides of the same coin, meaning that it's the same attack, different method. However, they still require different solutions. Now, as Natasha rightly said, Brand Exploit Protect is there to look at the domains that you don't own, right? Where DMARC is a framework that's designed to protect the domains that you own. So before we get into a DMARC analyzer, what I want to talk about first is a case which happened with a very big retail outlet in South Africa called Macro, right? Now, Macro is pretty much like a giant Carrefour. So you go to Macro, you can buy anything from Macro pretty much. But it's also there designed that you can then go and buy stuff in bulk at very, very cheap prices. So it is tailored for people that like to buy in bulk. It's also tailored for the low income households as well. Now, what happened with Macro is there was this case a couple of years back where Macro were they were impacted by an attack where a group of attackers or bad actors managed to spoof the macro domain. Now, this is fairly simple because there are a lot of, we've done research globally. I'm not going to give you the statistics on the call here. I mean, we can share that afterwards. But, you're looking at around 3/4 of companies have not started their DMARC journey, right? So it's very easy for an attacker to pick out who they want to go and attack and who they want to spoof. The idea is, what are they going to do after that to trick end users into thinking that this is legitimate, right? So in this case, there were the attackers put together a job post specifically for macro. And what they did is they spoofed the macro domain, so it looked like it was coming from macro.co.za, and the post was tailored towards people who were looking for employment. And these jobs were, these posts were posted on Facebook, LinkedIn, they were sent via email. It was very, very public, right? We see these things happen a lot through things like SMS even. We see them happen through images that come through WhatsApp. So there's lots of different ways that the attackers can try and get to their target audience. Now, this particular one, as I mentioned, happened through email. So all the posts that were in Facebook, LinkedIn did have a reply to address where the recipients or whoever were trying to apply for these jobs would click on a link, and then they were taken to a website. Now, the emails were also sent out to various databases offering employment and saying, click here if you want to if you want to apply for this job. Once the recipients clicked on the link or responded to the email, they were taken to a website that looked like the macro job portal, where they could go and start the process. Okay. Now, how this all starts is the attackers run through a reconnaissance phase. So just like they do with brand exploit protect or brand exploits, where we obviously stop it at the reconnaissance phase, or they're spoofing the domain and they're doing reconnaissance. They're trying to understand who they're attacking, right? What type of content is going to be most impactful? Where are their target markets? When are they going to do this? Why and how? Now, the why and how is easy because ultimately they want to get paid. Remember, the attackers do this because it's their job, right? And they want to make money out of this. The when is also very important. So typically the attacks do have times where we'll see more attacks, and then there'll be times where we see fewer attacks. And typically, you might be looking at sometime towards the end of the year. This is typically where people are looking for new jobs at the end of financial years, beginning of new financial years of certain organizations. It could also be times where people are more, they let their guard down, right? So this could be things like during holiday seasons or tax years, things where people are more likely to go and respond to these emails. As I mentioned, what they did is, in this example, they used the macro.co.za domain. So they were able to spoof this. Now, this is the example of the exact email that was sent to recipients. So what it says is it's telling them what their salary will be, which is around 5,000 Rand cost to company, inclusive of Provident Fund contributions and pension fund, right? There will be a background check and COVID test fees the people that are applying for these jobs, the applicants will need to pay. Now, before the training date, they're required to pay a fully refundable fee of 250 Rand by Tuesday, the 18th of January for the background check and the COVID tests. Now, this will ensure that you do not have any criminal records and healthy, that you are a legitimate candidate. You'll receive this back plus your travel money on the 20th of January when your employment starts. Now, this is where it becomes interesting, right? Now, typically during an application, we don't have to pay anything, right? It's typically the company that are going to pay for the background checks, that are going to pay for certain tests and so on. What's happening here is it's asking every applicant to pay 250 Rand. Now, if we look at the payment service outlet, it says all verification payments are to be paid via any PEP stores nationwide via PEP money transfer services. Now, PEP is another retail chain in South Africa, which is tailored towards the same market. However, PEP and Macro are not connected. PEP have set up something called the money transfer service, which is basically a mobile wallet. So applicants or anybody that shops at PEP can go and apply for this money transfer service or this mobile wallet. They can top up and then they can use that to go and pay for certain services or to other retail stores and so on. So the applicant in this case would need to go to their PEP store and transfer money into this mobile wallet, right? And then use that mobile wallet to pay this 250 Rand so-called refundable fee. Now, as I mentioned, PEP is no way connected. So this was a way for the attackers to get people to load money into a mobile wallet, which was effectively then drained. So the applicants obviously would transfer the money there. The money would effectively be paid to the attackers. There was no job at the end of the day. Now, what happened after that is, right, we can now see the consequence of these types of attacks. Number one is that people lose trust in a big name brand like Macro. The brand, the reputation, right? Everything that this company has spent years to go and build is tarnished. It's now destroyed within moments, right? A simple thing like setting up a DMARC record could have prevented this from happening. So do you now, as a user, want to go and upload all your data with Macro? At the same time, if you see job posts from Macro, do you want to actually respond to them? Are you going to trust that they're real? The second thing is also the trust that that PEP has created with their mobile wallet is also now questionable. At the same time, PEP has now gone and sued Macro, right, for not taking the reasonable measures. So you can see that the consequences here are not just, the applicants have lost money, but now the applicants have lost trust, which means that Macro have lost customers, and also that PEP are now suing Macro. So we can also see the financial consequence there as well. Okay, so I'm going to just skip through some of this over here, and we can just talk about it. Now, the idea behind DMARC, as I mentioned, is to protect the domains that you own. Right? We're not looking at the senders. We're not looking at similar domains. We're looking at your exact domains. And how we do this is creating a DMARC record. Now, DMARC is a combination of SPF and DKIM, and most of you on the call will be familiar with that. And it's a framework that allows you to configure a policy that tells the recipient what to do if an email is received and it doesn't comply. So something's wrong with SPF with DKIM. Now, the purpose of having DMARC is for early detection, right? We don't want, this should avoid any sort of scenario where, where we see with Macro and PEP and so on, where it takes a long time for it to be resolved. This needs to be early detection to enable you to action as quickly as possible. And ultimately, if you have correctly configured your DMARC policy, then none of this is even possible. So if we look at the top here, we talk about inbound security. Inbound and outbound controls are different. So inbound is where I showed you zone 1. So this is where you'll find your email security layer. Now, we do things like anti-spoofing for inbound email, protecting your domain. We do antivirus and anti-spam. We do targeted threat protection for phishing, spear phishing, impersonations, and so on. However, when these emails are being sent externally, remember the emails don't come through the gateway. So your email security is useless in this case. This is where you need outbound controls. This is where you need DMARC to gain full insight and control over those email channels. Now, DMARC Analyzer, this is just two quick screenshots of what the dashboard is. DMARC Analyzer is an easy-to-use platform that gives you 360-degree visibility and reporting. When you configure a DMARC policy, DMARC then collects two types of reports. It collects aggregated reports and collects forensic reports. The detail in those reports without a solution like DMARC Analyzer are almost impossible to read. They're all in XML format. You get thousands of reports, but in those reports is where you find the detail in terms of when an email gets sent, what is the recipient server telling you? Are they telling you there's something wrong with the SPF? Is it telling you there's something wrong with DKIM? Are they telling you it's coming from the correct source? Now, we aggregate these reports. We then show you all the aggregated and the forensic reports and in a nice, easy to use platform so you can see are my domains compliant. Now, the purpose of DMARC, as I mentioned, is not just from an anti-spoofing perspective. That's very important, but it's also to allow certain applications that are in your environment that legitimately spoof your domain. It allows those to land up in inboxes. So the idea is to have your email, including the applications that legitimately send on your behalf, such as Salesforce, MailChimp, and so on, to hit users' inboxes, recipients' inboxes. On the other hand, it's also to reject any sort of spoofing that may happen. So if an attacker tries to spoof your domain and they send it to the recipient will check what the DMARC record says. Now, DMARC, I just want to, sorry about that. Let me just share that. Now, DMARC has effectively 3 different policies, and DMARC is a journey. So DMARC is not something that can just be configured in one day and finished. DMARC might take a lot of time to configure. Now, the reason is because DMARC has 3 different policies. The first one is none. None means that the recipient is going to receive the email. I just want to see the reports. They can accept the email. They can put it into their junk folder, whatever they want to do with it. That's up to them. I want to see the reports. Now, for you, this is a reconnaissance phase on your side, because you're trying to understand, okay, are we sending emails? Are they landed up in inboxes? Are people trying to spoof my domain? Do I have any applications on my side that legitimately spoof my domain that I maybe don't know about? The next policy you're going to move to is something called quarantine. Once you move to quarantine, you are telling the recipients that if they receive an email that does not comply, they can accept the email. However, it must go into their junk. I don't want them to reject it. They can accept it, but it's going to go into junk. And what happens is, obviously, from a reporting perspective, you can start really gaining better insights. So now I can start to see, all right, now I do have legitimate applications that are spoofing my domain. However, they are going into, they are being quarantined on the recipient side. So maybe there's something wrong with SPF or DKIM. Let me check DMARC Analyzer. Let me see what it's telling me before I move on. The third policy is the reject policy. This is where you have completed your DMARC journey and now you're just monitoring. Rejecting is that you're saying, I know my environment. I know my environment 100%. I know all my applications. I know that everything's okay. If there's any attempt for somebody to spoof my domain, the recipient must honor my DMARC record that says reject. Right. Now, Mimecast is there to help with this. So DMARC Analyzer is a monitoring and reporting platform, right? However, we bundle this with managed services to help you get to that reject policy as quickly as possible. As I mentioned, moving through this journey could take days, could take weeks, could take months, could take years, depending on how big your environment is or how much you know about your environment. The idea behind the managed services is to help give you successfully implement DMARC and move to that reject policy as quickly as possible with the support from our managed services team. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to hand over for any sort of Q&A. I did see a question come through. I'll attend to that shortly, but I will then hand over back to Bulwark. I've got a question from Mohammed Saleh. So I'm just going to attend to this question. His question is, to use DMARC Analyzer, should we migrate my domains to Mimecast? Because I saw domain dashboard at slide 7. Okay. So DMARC Analyzer, you don't need to migrate your domains to Mimecast, but you need to host your DMARC record with Mimecast. right? So it wouldn't be integrated with your mail flow at all. All that happens is that the same way that you can configure your DMARC and maybe you host it in Office 365 or something similar, you're going to set up that DMARC record on Mimecast. What happens is that the DMARC record says that if there are any aggregated or forensic reports, they must be sent to a specified mailbox. If you're not using a solution, you will specify a mailbox in your environment where you'll get these reports that are in XML format. We are redirecting those and saying that if there are reports, they must be sent to DMARC Analyzer. We will then go and break those reports down into more readable bytes, right? So then you get better visibility. So to answer your question, yeah, you wouldn't need to migrate domains to Mimecast. All you need to do is configure a DMARC record in Mimecast and DMARC Analyzer.
Guys, if you have any questions, you can share it on the chat or you can just mail it to us. So now I guess that's it from our end. So thank you all for joining. Thank you once again, Sean and Natasha, for presenting, and thank you all for joining the event. And thanks Mani and Rajesh for organizing this session. So thank you all. Have a good day.